The station, called Helix 9, floated quietly between two pale stars, its long silver arms turning slowly, as if thinking about something it could not put into words. Inside, thousands of species lived and worked together, each bringing their own logic, customs, and carefully controlled emotions. Among them, humans were known as useful but strange. They were clever, adaptable, and fast learners, but they were also messy. They smiled too easily. They frowned without noticing. Their voices changed when they cared. Most other species had learned long ago how to hide such things. Dr. Elias Rowan did not think of himself as strange. He woke up each cycle, drank his warm caffeine drink, reviewed research notes, and walked the curved halls to the Cultural Studies wing. He believed he was calm, professional, and reasonable. If someone had told him that his face often showed his thoughts before he spoke, he would have laughed and said they were imagining things. That morning, Elias entered a shared research chamber filled with soft white light. The walls shifted color slightly to match the comfort needs of whoever was inside. At the center stood Ceres. Ceres was not human. Her species did not have hair, but a smooth, reflective surface that caught light like water. Her eyes were large and dark, shaped to notice movement and detail rather than color. She was known across the station as a cognition specialist, someone who studied how different minds worked. Elias had been assigned to collaborate with her on a long-term project about cross-species communication. "Good cycle, Dr. Rowan," Sarah said. Her voice was gentle, carefully tuned to a human-friendly frequency. "Good cycle," Elias replied. "You can call me Elias." "We've been working together for weeks now." Sarah tilted her head slightly. "Yes, humans use given names to reduce social distance. I am still practicing." "That's okay," Elias said, smiling. "You're doing great." As he said it, something warm rose to his face. He didn't notice it. He was thinking about the data tablet in his hands, about how long the meeting might take, about whether he had enough time later to finish a report. Saris noticed. Her eyes focused on his face for just a moment longer than usual, a faint change in skin tone. Increased blood flow, a subtle shift around the eyes. She had seen humans do this before, but never so clearly tied to a simple statement. "You are experiencing a physiological response," she said calmly. Elias blinked. "Sorry, your face," Saris continued. "It has changed color." He raised a hand and touched his cheek. "Oh yeah, humans do that sometimes." "Why?" she asked. He shrugged. "Could be anything: temperature, stress, embarrassment, happiness." "You were not stressed," Sarah said. "Your heart rate was stable. The room temperature has not changed. You appeared relaxed." Elias laughed lightly. "Then I guess it's just one of those human things." Saris did not respond right away. She was watching him too closely for that to be comfortable, though Elias could not explain why he felt that way. He shifted his weight and cleared his throat. "So," he said, "shall we get started on the language comparison?" "Yes," Saris replied. "But first I would like to ask a personal question." Elias hesitated. Sure. When you said I was doing great," she said, "did you believe it?" "Of course," he said without thinking. His face warmed again. Saris's eyes widened just slightly. "Fascinating." That word followed Elias for the rest of the day. Fascinating. She said it quietly, as if to herself, as they worked. When he explained a human idiom. When he joked about station food. When he became thoughtful while describing Earth oceans. Each time his expressions shifted, and each time she noticed. By the end of the session, Elias felt oddly tired, though nothing difficult had happened. As he gathered his things, Sarah spoke again. "Dr. Rowan, Elias." "Yes." "Do humans know when their internal states are visible?" He smiled. "Sometimes, mostly no." "I see," she said. "Thank you for your honesty." As he left, Saris remained in the room, replaying the interaction through her memory. Humans had been classified as emotionally expressive, but this was different. This was not deliberate signaling. It was leakage, honest, uncontrolled, and perfectly timed. Later that cycle, Saris accessed the station archives. She searched for studies on human facial responses, skin color changes, micro-expressions. There were many, but most treated these traits as weaknesses, predictable, exploitable. She disagreed. On Helix 9, most species had evolved to hide their inner states. Survival had demanded it. To reveal too much was to invite danger. Over time, even among allies, openness faded. Trust became something calculated, not felt. Humans had gone the opposite direction. They had survived while showing their feelings to one another. Their faces betrayed fear, joy, interest, affection, and instead of destroying them, it had allowed cooperation, bonding, rapid social learning. Saris realized something unsettling. Humans were not just emotionally expressive. They were emotionally readable even to themselves only in part, and yet they functioned. They built civilizations. They reached the stars. The next meeting, Saris adjusted the room, lighting slightly warmer. Elias entered, immediately commenting on how comfortable it felt. Coincidence, she said. They began with simple conversation rather than work. Saris asked about human leisure activities. Elias talked about stories, music, shared meals. Each topic brought a new expression. Nostalgia softened his eyes. Amusement lifted one corner of his mouth before the other. Fondness slowed his speech. "You enjoy speaking of these things," Saris observed. "Yeah," Elias said. "They remind me of home." His face flushed again, lighter this time. Saris smiled. It was not a human smile, but an expression of interest her species used rarely. "You are blushing again," she said gently. Elias laughed. "Am I? Sorry, guess I can't help it." "That is what interests me," she replied. "You do not attempt to help it." He shrugged. "Why would I?" Saris looked at him carefully. On many worlds, revealing internal states is considered unsafe. Elias thought about that. On Earth, it can be unsafe too, but hiding everything all the time is exhausting. Someone has to trust first. The word stayed with her long after he left. That cycle, Saris submitted a private note to the Cognitive Council. It was brief, careful, and neutral in tone, but its meaning was clear. Humans may possess an unrecognized form of social intelligence. They do not merely communicate with words. They broadcast truth. And they do it without even knowing. The next cycle on Helix 9 began quietly, but for Saris, it carried a sense of purpose she had not felt in many rotations. She reviewed her private notes before entering the shared chamber, replaying images of Elia's face from memory. The changes had been small, almost invisible, yet they followed meaning with perfect timing. She had studied dozens of species, but none revealed themselves the way humans did. When Elias arrived, he looked more alert than usual. He had slept well, eaten properly, and felt ready for another long day of work. He did not know that today would be different. "Good cycle, Saris," he said naturally. "Good cycle, Elias," she replied. "I would like to begin with something simple today." "Sounds good," he said, setting down his tablet. Saris adjusted the room settings again, not for comfort alone, but for observation. The light was warm but neutral. The air carried a faint, pleasant scent designed to reduce tension in most species. She positioned herself slightly closer than before, still within human social norms. "I would like to test language nuance," she said, "specifically informal human communication." Elias smiled. "Sure, like jokes or small talk." "Yes," she replied. "Please speak as you would with a trusted colleague." He laughed softly. "That's dangerous. Humans say weird things when they're comfortable." Saris watched his face as he spoke. The smile reached his eyes, his shoulders relaxed. There was no hesitation. "Proceed," she said. They talked about minor things at first. Station food. The strange way gravity felt in the outer ring. A misunderstanding Elias once had with a six-limbed engineer who interpreted silence as agreement. Each story came with its own set of expressions. Saris noticed that Elias did not try to control them. They happened as naturally as breathing. She asked questions, gentle ones, guiding the conversation without making it obvious. When she showed curiosity, Elias leaned forward. When she expressed confusion, his brow tightened slightly, not in frustration but concern. He wanted to be understood. At one point, Sarah said, "Humans often joke about themselves." "Why?" Elias thought for a moment. "I guess it makes things less tense. If you can laugh at yourself, others feel safer around you." As he said it, his voice softened. His face warmed again. Sarah paused the conversation. "May I ask another personal question?" Elias blinked. "You don't usually ask permission." "I am adjusting the parameters," she said. "Okay," he replied. "Go ahead." "When you speak honestly," she said, "do you realize when others can see it?" He frowned slightly. "See it how?" "In your face, your posture, your tone." Elias smiled a little awkwardly. "I guess people can tell when I care. I've been told I'm not very mysterious." "That does not concern you?" Sarah asked. He shook his head. "Not really. If someone knows where I stand, it saves time." Sarah felt something shift in her understanding. For many species, mystery was safety, distance was control. Humans seemed to trade both willingly for connection. She decided to push further. "I would like to attempt a controlled conversational exercise," she said. "It will appear informal." Elias raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like an experiment." She tilted her head. "Only if you are uncomfortable." He considered it for a moment. "I trust you." His face flushed again, faint but clear. Sarah stored that moment carefully. She began with compliments, subtle ones. She noted Elias' patience, his clarity when explaining complex ideas, his adaptability. Each time his reactions were immediate, a slight smile, a shift in breathing, a warmth under the skin. "You respond strongly to positive evaluation," she observed. "Most humans do," Elias said. "It feels good to be seen." That sentence stayed with her. Next, she changed direction. She asked about failure, about mistakes, about moments Elias wished he had handled differently. She was careful not to cause distress. Her questions were framed with curiosity, not judgment. When Elias spoke of a failed project early in his career, his shoulders tightened. His gaze dropped briefly, his voice slowed, yet he continued openly without being asked. "I learned a lot," he said. "It hurt at the time, but it made me better." Sarah watched closely. Even discomfort came with honesty. There was no attempt to hide it. "This is inefficient," she said quietly, more to herself than to him. Elias laughed. "Yeah, humans aren't known for efficiency in emotions." She looked at him directly. "Yet you function well, you cooperate. You recover quickly." "That's because we don't carry everything alone," he said. "We share it." Sarah felt a strange pause in her thoughts. Her species shared information but not internal states. Not like this. The session ended later than planned. As Elias stood to leave, Sarah spoke again. "Elias, today's session was not purely linguistic." He smiled knowingly. "I figured." "Does that bother you?" she asked. He considered the question carefully. "No, I like being understood, even if I don't always understand myself." After he left, Sarah remained in the chamber, replaying every detail. The data she had gathered could not be measured in numbers alone. It was pattern-based, intuitive, almost human in nature. Later that cycle, she presented a limited version of her findings to a small advisory group. She did not mention Elias by name. She spoke only of humans in general. "Human emotional expression is not noise," she said. "It is signal. High-density, real-time signal." One delegate questioned her, "But such openness invites manipulation." "Yes," Sarah replied. "And yet humans persist. That suggests a compensating advantage." Another asked, "What advantage?" Sarah paused before answering. "They detect sincerity faster than deception. Not through logic but resonance. When another being reacts honestly, humans respond in kind. When something is wrong, they sense it." The room fell quiet. "Humans do not just communicate," she continued. "They synchronize." The advisory group requested further observation. The next cycle, Sarah met Elias again. This time she did not prepare the room at all. No adjustments, no controls. Today, she said, I would like you to speak freely about anything you choose. Elias laughed. That's dangerous. I am aware, she said. He thought for a moment, then began to talk about Earth's skies, about clouds and storms and the way light looked at sunset. His voice carried warmth and longing. His face followed every memory. Saris listened without interruption. As he spoke, she realized something important. This was not an experiment. It was a lesson. Humans did not guard their inner worlds because they believed connection was worth the risk. They accepted vulnerability as the cost of trust, and in doing so, they changed everyone around them. When Elias finished, he looked slightly embarrassed. Sorry, I ramble when I get going. You do not ramble, Sarah said softly. You reveal. He smiled, not fully understanding why her words mattered. Saris understood. And she had not even started yet. The cycle after Saris submitted her extended report, Helix 9 felt different to Elias, though he could not explain why. The halls were the same. The lights followed their usual patterns, yet people looked at him a little longer than before. Not staring, just noticing. When he entered the shared chamber, Saris was already there. She stood very still, her posture more formal than usual. Good cycle, Elias said. Good cycle, Saris replied. Please sit. That alone made him pause. She rarely gave instructions so directly. He sat anyway, curiosity rising. I have been asked to continue my research, she said, with expanded observation. Elias smiled. Sounds important. It is, she replied, and it involves you. His smile faded just a little. Involves me how? Saris chose her words carefully. You will not be tested, you will not be evaluated, you will simply be present. That doesn't sound stressful, Elias said lightly. His face, however, showed uncertainty. Saris noticed immediately. There is a diplomatic session today, she continued. Multiple species, long-standing disagreement, logical approaches have failed. Elias leaned back slightly. And you want me there? Yes, he frowned. I'm not a diplomat. No, Saris said. You are human. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. When she did not react, he stopped. You're serious? Yes. She activated the room display, showing a summary of the situation. Several trade groups had been negotiating access to a shared research corridor. No one trusted anyone else. Every proposal was examined for hidden meaning. Every pause was treated as a threat. They don't trust each other, Elias said after reading. That's the whole problem. Yes, Saris replied, and they trust data even less. He rubbed the back of his neck. So what exactly do you want me to do? Attend, she said. Listen, respond when spoken to, be yourself. Elias stared at her. That's your plan. It is an observation, she corrected. He sighed. This feels like an experiment. Saris tilted her head. Does that make you uncomfortable? He thought for a moment. No, just nervous. His cheeks warmed slightly. Saris felt a quiet certainty settle into place. The council chamber was larger than Elias expected. It was built to accommodate many forms of life, with adjustable gravity zones and seating that reshaped itself. Representatives from 6 species were already present, each surrounded by aides and data screens. Elias was placed at the side, next to Saris. He felt very aware of his hands, his posture, the way his breathing sounded in his ears. When introductions were made, Elias nodded politely. Some delegates returned the gesture. Others studied him closely. The discussion began slowly. Statements were read, proposals presented. Objections raised. The language was careful, precise, and cold. Elias followed along, but his attention drifted to the people speaking. He noticed tight postures, rigid movements, voices that never changed tone. They were afraid, he realized, afraid of being tricked, afraid of losing ground. At one point, a representative paused and looked at Elias. You are the human, they said. Elias nodded. Yes. Your presence here is unusual. He smiled a little awkwardly. I get that a lot. A ripple of confusion moved through the chamber. Humor was not expected. Do you have a position? the representative asked. Elias glanced at Saris. She gave a small nod. I think everyone here wants the same thing, Elias said slowly, to move forward without getting hurt. His voice was calm, his expression open. Several delegates leaned forward without realizing it. You speak without presenting terms, one said. Because I don't have any, Elias replied. I'm just listening. His face showed sincerity. He did not hide it. He did not know how. As the discussion continued, delegates began to address him directly, not for decisions but for reactions. Does this proposal seem fair to you? One asked. Elias read it carefully. His brow furrowed slightly. It feels unbalanced, he said. Not on purpose, maybe, but I'd feel nervous agreeing to it. The room went quiet. Saris watched closely. Elias had not accused anyone. He had not used logic or data. He had shared how it felt. The delegate who proposed the terms shifted. That was not my intent. Elias nodded. I believe you. His face showed it. Something changed then. Very slowly, the tone softened. Proposals became less rigid. Questions became honest instead of defensive. Delegates began to explain not just what they wanted, but why. Elias listened. When confusion appeared, his face showed concern. When agreement formed, relief softened his shoulders. When tension rose, discomfort flickered across his expression. He became a mirror. By the end of the session, a provisional agreement had formed. Not perfect, but workable. The delegates left quietly, many of them thoughtful. As the chamber emptied, Elias let out a long breath. I didn't do anything, he said. Saris looked at him. You did everything. Later, reports spread quickly through Helix 9. The diplomatic session had succeeded where others failed. Analysts searched for explanations. Some credited timing. Others blamed fatigue. A few mentioned the human observer. Saris was called before a higher council. Explain, one member said, without speculation. Saris answered carefully. Humans display internal states externally. They do not filter emotional response unless taught to do so. This creates a feedback loop. Explain further, another requested. When humans react, Saris continued, others adjust, not consciously. Instinctively, they respond to sincerity, discomfort, trust. Humans provide constant, honest data. That is dangerous, a counselor said. Yes, Saris agreed, and powerful. They asked about manipulation, about risk, about control. Saris answered truthfully. Humans can be deceived, but they are also quick to sense inconsistency. When something does not align, their response changes immediately. They may not know why, but others feel it. The council was silent. They do not hide, Saris concluded. And that forces honesty in others. When Elias returned to his quarters that cycle, he felt tired in a deep way. He replayed the meeting in his mind, unsure what he had done differently. A message appeared on his console, from Saris. Thank you for today. He smiled, warmth rising to his face even though no one could see it. The next cycle, requests began to appear, invitations to observe, to attend, to be present. Elias stared at the list, uneasy. He went to see Saris. This is getting out of hand, he said. I'm not some kind of tool. Saris looked at him steadily. You are not a tool. Then why does it feel like I'm being used? She considered that. Because you are being relied upon, he frowned. That's worse. Saris stepped closer, lowering her voice. Elias. Humans change rooms simply by entering them. You do not impose, you influence. He looked away. I don't want to be responsible for everyone else's feelings. You are not, she said gently. You are responsible only for your honesty. That made him pause. Later, as Elias walked the halls, he noticed something new. Other species were watching not just him, but each other, paying attention to reactions, adjusting tone, learning. Human presence was spreading something quietly, not dominance, awareness. Saris observed it all from a distance, recording changes that could not be graphed. The station felt warmer. Conversations lasted longer. Silences felt less threatening. Humanity had not arrived with force or command. They had arrived with open faces and unguarded hearts. And the galaxy was beginning to respond. Helix 9 no longer felt like a place where people only passed each other to reach their work. Something subtle had changed. Conversations lingered. Pauses were no longer rushed to be filled with data. Even the station system showed longer idle times in meeting rooms, as if beings simply stayed to talk. Elias noticed it everywhere. In the food hall, a tall, insect-like engineer paused mid-sentence, then corrected himself, saying, "That sounded dishonest. Let me try again." The words were simple, but the act was rare. Elias felt a small warmth in his chest, though he did not know why. He tried to ignore the attention that followed him. He still did his job. He still reviewed cultural records and helped translate human concepts into something others could understand. But now, people asked him questions that had nothing to do with language. How do humans know when to trust? Sometimes he said, "I don't know." Other times he said, "It just feels wrong," or "It feels right." He knew those answers were not scientific, but they were true. Saris watched from a careful distance. She limited her direct involvement now, allowing others to observe Elias without her guidance. She noticed something important. The more people paid attention to humans, the more they began to notice themselves. A delegate from a reptilian species once stopped mid-negotiation and said, "My tone has changed. I am defensive." The room had gone quiet, not in fear, but in surprise. Self-awareness like that was uncommon. That cycle, Saris invited Elias to walk through the station's observation ring. The stars outside were distant and calm, slow-moving lights against endless dark. "You are uncomfortable," Saris said. Elias sighed. "I feel like I broke something." "You did not," she replied. "You revealed something." He leaned against the railing. "People keep saying humans are special. I don't feel special." "That is consistent," Saris said. He smiled faintly. "That's not comforting." Saris looked out at the stars. "My species evolved to survive through control. Emotional suppression, predictability, we believed this was maturity." "And now?" Elias asked. "And now," she said, "I see that we traded something away." Elias was quiet. Saris continued. "Humans did not remove vulnerability from their systems. You built around it." "That doesn't always go well," Elias said. "We mess up. We hurt each other. We misunderstand things." "Yes," Saris replied, "but you also repair quickly, repeatedly." He thought about that, about apologies, about laughter after tension, about saying the wrong thing and still being forgiven. A message interrupted them, a council request, high priority. The council chamber felt heavier than before, not tense but serious. Elias sat beside Saris, his hands folded, trying not to fidget. One council member spoke. "We have observed changes across Helix 9. Another added, "Conflict resolution times have shortened. Cooperation metrics have increased." A third said, "We wish to understand the cause." All eyes turned to Elias. He swallowed. His face warmed. "I don't think it's just me," he said slowly. "I think people are paying attention in a new way." "Explain," the council requested. "When someone reacts honestly," Elias said, "it gives others permission to do the same. You don't have to guess as much. You don't have to defend as hard." Saris watched him carefully. His posture was open, his voice steady. A counselor asked, "Is this a human strategy?" Elias shook his head. "No, it's just how we are." "Then why has it spread?" another asked. "Because it feels safer than hiding," Elias said. "At least it does to us." The council was silent for a long moment. Finally, one member spoke. "This suggests humans influence social systems without intent." "Yes," Saris said. "Their presence alters baseline behavior." "That is power," the counselor replied. Elias frowned. "I don't want power." Saris turned to him. "Power does not require desire." That disturbed him more than anything else. After the meeting, Elias avoided the common areas. He stayed in his quarters longer than usual, reading old Earth texts, stories about early humans, about tribes and villages and shared fires. He noticed how often survival depended on reading faces, voices, moods. Humans had never been the strongest. They had never been the fastest, but they had learned to understand each other deeply, quickly, and openly. It was how they survived long before technology. The next cycle, an incident occurred. Two non-human research groups had a disagreement, not violent, not loud, but deeply stuck. Both groups requested Elia's presence. He hesitated. He did not want to become a solution people relied on too heavily. Saris noticed his reluctance. "You may refuse," she said. "What happens if I do?" Elias asked. "They will continue as before," she replied. Slowly, carefully, with little trust. Elias closed his eyes briefly, then he nodded. "I'll go, but I won't fix it." "You never do," Saris said. In the meeting, Elias sat quietly. He listened. He reacted without speaking. His face showed confusion when things did not align. His shoulders relaxed when understanding appeared. He smiled slightly when compromise formed. After a long pause, one representative spoke. "When we speak, you react before judging." Elias blinked. "I guess so." "That tells us when we are unclear," the representative said. "Or when we are being unfair." Elias said nothing. The agreement reached was simple, not perfect, but honest. When Elias left, he felt something shift inside him. Less fear, more acceptance. Back in her private workspace, Saris reviewed long-term data. The changes were undeniable, not just in outcomes but in behavior. Species that once hid emotion now showed small signs of it, not as openly as humans but enough to matter. She recorded a final observation. Humans are not emotionally weak. They are emotionally resilient. They recover because they share. They survive because they connect. That cycle, Sarah spoke privately with Elias. "There is a conclusion forming," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "That sounds dangerous." "The galaxy believes humans are changing interspecies interaction," she said. "Not through force, through presence." Elias exhaled slowly. "That makes me uncomfortable." "That is appropriate," Saris replied. "Change should be." She paused, then added, "You are teaching us something we forgot." "What's that?" Elias asked. Saris looked at him, her reflective surface catching the soft station light. "That hiding is not the same as safety," she said. "And that honesty, while risky, creates space for trust." Elias felt warmth rise to his face again. He laughed softly. "You make it sound like humans planned all this." Saris's tone softened. "You did not plan it, you lived it." Outside, Helix 9 continued its slow rotation. Inside, a quiet shift was underway. The galaxy was learning that strength did not always come from control. Sometimes, it came from being seen. Helix 9 felt calmer in the final cycles of that season. Not quieter, but steadier. The station still carried thousands of conversations, but fewer of them felt sharp or guarded. There was a sense that people were no longer speaking only to protect themselves. They were speaking to be understood. Elias noticed the change most when people stopped asking him to attend meetings. At first, the silence made him nervous. He checked his console more often, expecting new requests, but instead of invitations, he received messages of thanks, short notes, simple words. "We tried listening first. We noticed our own reactions. We solved it." Elias read them slowly, unsure how to feel. Relief came first, then something like pride, though it was softer than he expected. Saris visited him later that cycle. She did not call ahead. "You are no longer required," she said. He laughed. "That's one way to put it." She sat across from him, her posture relaxed in a way he had rarely seen before. "The council has concluded its review." "And?" Elias asked. "They have decided that humans are not an anomaly to be corrected," she said, "nor a tool to be exploited." He leaned back. "That's good news." "They believe humans represent a lost evolutionary path," Saris continued, "one that prioritizes emotional transparency over control." Elias frowned. "That sounds like a polite way of saying we're bad at hiding things." "Yes," Saris said calmly, "and also a polite way of saying that it works." Elias smiled, warmth rising to his face again. Saris watched it happen, but this time she did not record it. She simply observed. "There is another conclusion," she said. Elias raised an eyebrow. "You're not done, are you?" "No," she replied. "I am just beginning." She explained that several species had requested guidance, not from humans directly but from Saris. They wanted to understand how humans learn to live with visible emotions, how they survive disagreement without constant control. "They want to learn to feel," Elias asked. "They want to learn to recover," Saris corrected. "Your species does not avoid emotional exposure. You endure it." He thought about that, about arguments that ended in apologies, about mistakes that led to laughter later, about how being embarrassed did not end a life, only a moment. "We fall a lot," he said, "but we get back up." "Yes," Saris replied. "You do not treat vulnerability as failure." That night, Elias dreamed of Earth. Not cities or technology, but people, faces, voices, shared meals, moments when someone said the wrong thing and everyone survived anyway. When he woke, he felt lighter. The next cycle, the council chamber held a different kind of gathering. No formal agenda, no negotiations. Representatives from many species sat together, not to decide policy, but to observe something new. They were watching humans interact with each other. Several human crew members had been invited to share a meal in the common hall. There was no presentation, no explanation, just conversation. Elias sat among them, feeling suddenly self-conscious. He laughed too loudly at one joke. He frowned when someone misunderstood him. He apologized quickly. He smiled again. Around the room, non-human observers watched closely. They saw disagreement that did not turn hostile. They saw embarrassment that did not lead to withdrawal. They saw honesty followed by forgiveness. One observer whispered, "They reveal weakness and are not destroyed." Another replied, "They reveal weakness and are strengthened." Sarah stood at the edge of the room, her thoughts quiet and clear. This was not something that could be taught through data. It had to be witnessed. Later, a council member approached Elias. "You do not regulate your expressions," they said. Elias shrugged. "Not very well." "Does it not frighten you?" the counselor asked. "Sometimes," Elias said honestly, "but hiding all the time frightens me more." The counselor considered that. "You accept risk as part of connection." "Yes," Elias replied, "connection is worth it." That answer was recorded. In the cycles that followed, small changes continued across Helix 9, not dramatic, not forced, just quiet shifts. People paused before speaking, not to calculate, but to notice how they felt. Some tried expressing discomfort openly, then waited to see what happened. They were surprised when the result was understanding instead of danger. Mistakes still happened. Misunderstandings still occurred, but repair came faster. Saris compiled her final report, though she knew it would never truly be final. Humans do not dominate social systems. They soften them. They introduce tolerance for imperfection. She submitted it without recommendation. The data spoke for itself. On his last evening before reassignment, Elias returned to the observation ring. The stars were the same as always, distant and calm. Saris joined him quietly. "You are leaving Helix 9, she said. "For now," Elias replied. "They want me to help set up a cultural exchange on another station." "You will do the same thing there," Saris said. He smiled, probably without meaning to. She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "There is something I never told you." He turned toward her. "What's that?" "The first time you blushed in front of me," Saris said, "I believed it was a biological error." Elias laughed. "Yeah, that sounds about right." "I was wrong," she continued. "It was information." He blinked. "Information about what?" "About sincerity," she said. "About safety. About intent without manipulation." She looked at him directly. "You revealed more truth in that moment than many species do in a lifetime." Elias felt his face warm again. He shook his head, smiling. "You're doing it on purpose now." Saris's tone softened. "Perhaps." They stood together in silence, watching the slow movement of light beyond the glass. "You once said you hadn't even started yet," Elias said. "Yes," Saris replied, "and I was correct." He nodded. "So was I," she tilted her head. "About what?" "About being human," Elias said. "We don't really know what we're doing. We just keep showing up as ourselves." Saris considered that. "That may be your greatest strength." When Elias left the station, Helix 9 did not return to how it had been before. It could not. Something essential had shifted. The galaxy had learned that power did not always come from silence, control, or perfection. Sometimes it came from open faces, from honest reactions, from a species willing to blush and keep speaking anyway. And it had only just begun.